Many thanks for staying. Welcome back to the marketplace. Now, production at some industries across the country could be having some challenges in meeting their daily targets. This is as a result of yesterday's nationwide blackout. The National Power Distribution Company, GRIDCO, says there were some problems with generating plants in some parts of the country. Chief Executive of GRIDCO, William Amuna, has been speaking to the situation.
Have details of what happened at the end, but I know we did not get the power. You know, we are at the tail end of the supply chain, and anything that happens upstream affects downstream. And so when the supply seats come in, then the system went down. But I'm sure they will come out very soon.
All right. Okay, Mr. William Boating. Now, this incident occurred last night, but prior to that, we'd received some complaints of people talking about the inconsistency in power supply. Apart from this incident that occurred yesterday, is there something else that is affecting power supply to some parts of the country?
Yes. We also have our own challenge, I must confess. You know, when the rain sets in like that, and we have those storms that affect the network. So yes, we have some challenges. Then we are working assiduously. Our engineers are on the ground. We are patrolling the line. We have to trim the trees, and also look at the rope feeders, the ones that are the feeders that are just telling. We have to patrol all the lines. So we are working on it. Historically, when the rain sets in, we go through these challenges, but I'm certain that will normalize it. We are on the ground.
All right, Mr. Boating, I appreciate the fact that you mentioned the weather affects your power supply sometimes, but in some areas, we've had reports of slight showers resulting in power outages, whereas in other areas, some heavy raindrops do not even interfere with the power supply. What's causing the difference in some of the areas? Do we run different systems?
I agree with you. We have to look at the robustness of the feeders. Some feeders are stronger than others. I must admit. You know, it depends also on the planning. You know, we have a lot of planning deficit within some of the regional capital. And in some areas, the planning has an effect on the reliability of our supply. Those are the areas we are on now. I told you about the father just on the ground. We've even gone further to ask for some contractors to assist us to patrol that weak feeder. So it's true, some areas goes off more frequently than others, or the system is more stable at some places.
All right, so William Amuna is Chief Executive Officer of GRIDCO. Now, some industries will normally be running 24 hours to help meet their production targets. So how bad will the current situation impact on their operations? And we talked to CEO of AGI, Seth Chumakwabwa.
For companies that are operating 24/7 and running night shifts, they have lost about 8 hours of productive time already. So definitely the effect of the power interruption on work has been quite negative. However, the extent of the effect also depends on how prolonged outages. Information we are taking from our members who are located in industrial areas who are operating 24 hours is that they are already losing some work, and there's definitely interruption on their work. But whatever it is, because the effect is negative, we should work hard to prevent the frequency of such occurrence. And possibly, if there's a way to eliminate it, we have to work hard to eliminate it completely.
How would they catch up with the situation?
Well, it definitely has an effect, and companies will have different approaches to that. It probably will mean they're working more hours, but if they're already running 24 hours, you can't extend the number of hours again. It probably will mean bringing in more staff, but definitely the effect is that it's going to cost additional money in doing so.
Seth Chumakwabwa, CEO of the Association of Ghana Industries, AGI. Now, away from power, Cocoa Board is assuring farmers will be given their due despite declining cocoa prices. Board Chair of Cocoa Board, Hackman Huswajiman, disclosed this to Joy Business after touring some cocoa processing factories in Tema. George Rafi has more.
What you call them are telling what if the facts on the ground is what they are doing, because most of the factories are not, apart from I think Barry-Calibo and Cargill, most of them are not doing their full capacity. They are not doing their full capacity. Whatever it is, even if we can do 80% and be comfortable, and our farmers will be comfortable, that's better. In Indonesia, they produce 500,000 tons, and everything is used in Indonesia apart from 10%, because then that 10% they use it to import Ghana cocoa to flavor their cocoa. So they are virtually doing 100% in situ, locally, in the country. So even if we are doing that and we increase it and they come to 75%, oh well and good. That means we are adding value to our product, but not exporting the beans at raw beans. Because the value added now, of course, comes to the economy, but of course taken away by those who are investing to repay their debts and things like that. So it doesn't really stay in the country as such, except maybe provide employment.
You do syndicated loan and you must pay the loan. So if you give it to these farmers at a reduced rate, wouldn't you be running at a cost?
No, the syndicated loan is not the whole amount that we give to the farmers. We give a certain percentage by the committee to the farmers. And so therefore, once we have paid the farmers, we still have a bit of the money left to pay for the operational expenses and administration and whatever and the rest, and to pay for our export duty and our other commitments. So that we use all the money to give to the farmers, so that if we give a discount, in any case, once we do that's the price that we are selling at.
And that was the board chair of Cocoa Board, Hackman Osua-Jimena. Earlier, George Wafi put together a business desk report on this particular development. Let's take a listen.
Cocoa bean has dropped for over $3,000 and is now trading at around $1,700 a ton. Analysts have attributed this to oversupply of the bean on the market. According to Cocoa Board, the country has already lost more than 1 billion cedis as a result of this development. This will obviously affect the projected revenue from cocoa bean exports. But board chair of Cocoa Board, Hackman Osua-Jimena, tells Joy Business the current price being paid to farmers and other benefits would not be affected.
Ordinarily, since we pay a certain percentage of that amount to cocoa farmers, we should be reducing the price of cocoa. But we are not. We are maintaining the price. That means we are cushioning off whatever effect it has. It may have effect on the economy, because income-wise, we've lost about over 1 billion. But at the end of the day, the farmers should be the center of our attention.
On the current challenges facing cocoa processing company, Hackman Osua-Jimena said the board is committed to assisting the company come out of this challenge. The board chair justified Cocoa Board's decision for licensed buying companies to pre-finance the purchases of cocoa beans on the market.
All of them that take pre-financing, some of them pay for it themselves. The pre-financing backed by guarantees is only to assure that those that don't have the wherewithal, those that don't have the capital, are able to operate. Sometimes also the interest rate that we charge them is smaller than what the bank will charge them. And then we also have guarantees from the bank, so that we are secured. It's not that if we lose everything.
The visit took the team to cocoa processing company Cargill, Barry-Calibo, Tuton and Niche Cocoa.
Let's now stay more with international commodities. And the price of crude oil continues to decline on the international market, currently hitting below the $50 mark. Reports say this is the lowest in a long time. The following business desk report looks at its impact on the economy as well as prices at the pumps.
The price of crude continues to decline on the international market. The price of the commodity has now hit $47. Reports say this is its lowest in almost 10 years. The decline has been influenced by a decision of some of the biggest oil producers like Saudi Arabia not to cut production despite the continuous decline in prices of the commodity. This means that there is still more supply on the market against actual demand for the product, a development that has also impacted on the price. This will be good news for consumers of petroleum products in Ghana, as it could impact on prices at the pumps. Another development that may bring some relief to consumers is the fact that the cedi's current stability, if sustained, could also reduce the price of petroleum products further in the coming days. Already, petrol and LPG are expected to go down marginally this week. However, on the other side, this might not be good for government because of its impact on projected revenue from crude exports. The state is looking at getting some $515 million crude export at a benchmark price of $56 a barrel. However, there are fears looking at the way the commodity is behaving, government's targets could be affected. This may affect some projects that government is hoping to use the oil cash to support.
Now go on the phone lines and speak with an economist from Data Bank, Courage Mate, to explain further how this particular situation would impact on the economy and what government should be doing to cushion this perceived shocks to the economy. Now, Courage Mate, you're welcome and to Marketplace.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so what is the implication of this current development of a downward trend in pricing of crude oil on the economy?
Well, there are two key areas to look at it from. Essentially, Ghana is still a net importer of crude oil, so it has a balance of payment implication for our economy. If we continue to pay high and high price for crude oil that we import, we'll run down our reserves of foreign currency, and it will expose the city to exchange rate pressures. And so if the price is going down from a balance of payment perspective, we make some savings on the forex reserve position, and that stabilizes the city. That improves the inflation outlook. So from a balance of payment perspective, I would say it's positive. But from the government budget perspective, it doesn't look too good because the government benchmark price for this year is about $56 per barrel. And on that basis, it's expecting about $515 million. Now, if prices fall below this level and remains at below this level for a long time, then the government may have to realign some of its expenditure items to ensure that it remains within the budget. And this is where some of the annual budget funding targets may suffer a little bit.
Okay, so the law requires government to dip its hands into the stabilization fund in times like these, especially sustained periods of a downward pricing in crude oil. Would it come up to that?
Well, immediately that risk is not yet crystallizing, but of course that's an option. Another option is that the government could come to Parliament in the middle of the year or sometime July to revise some of these fiscal numbers to make it consistent with the latest developments on the world market. And by July, we could also see what OPEC will do in June as far as curtailing output and imposing those sanctions and quota is concerned, and how that would help prices back up. So the government will give itself between now and July and see how the market will respond to a potential price support decision from OPEC in June.
Can it get to a point where government would suspend the implementation of some of its developmental projects?
If it gets wet, we can see that, because I think we saw that last year in the mid-year budget review, where there was a reduction in the capital expenditure budget, for the remainder of last year because of the sustained decline in crude oil price. So if it gets to the crunch situation, we could see something like that. But immediately, I don't think we are there yet. But again, we also need to realize that the stabilization fund has currently a balance of $207 million, and the cap as at last year was $100 million. So we have some excess that can be scooped to support fiscal operations as well.
Now let's come to the downstream sector. Certainly some good news for petroleum consumers, because they expect that it will reflect in petroleum pricing in the downstream sector. Is it the necessary factor?
Well, yes. Holding the exchange rate dynamics constant is good news for consumers of petroleum products, because then the 2-week pricing window will point downwards rather than upwards. And, in recent times, even businesses have had to incur a lot of costs to support their operations, especially now that we face a little shocks to our power supply infrastructure. Businesses will readily resort to generator, which would have to be fueled with some of these, petroleum products. And if the prices are down, then it reduces their cost of fueling these generators as well. So from the individual to the business perspective, lower prices, holding exchange rate pressures constant is good news for them.
Certainly not pleasant news for government, because earlier we heard that Cocoa prices have also been hitting the downward trend, and definitely is a source of worry for government. What would be your advice to the managers of the economy?
Well, I think the advice to the managers of the economy currently is to try and keep a check on expenditure. And I think that under this fiscal consolidation program, the key risk the government have faced have been on the expenditure side, because once revenue suffer shocks, the expenditure rigidities make it difficult for government to realign the budget and remain within limits. And so the government may have to enforce all the checks and the public financial management constraints at its disposal to ensure that expenditures remain within targets and can also be brought within the set limit that has been imposed by development on the revenue side.
Many thanks for your time, Courage Mate. Courage Mate is an economist with DataBank. He's been speaking to the situation we're witnessing currently, where global crude prices have been declining and currently hitting below the $50 mark. Still on the marketplace, moving on, financial analyst Mike Kobler has described government's decision to settle the energy sector debts with a 15-year local bond as a step in the right direction. The Vice President, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, recently revealed government to issue the long-term bond to clear the debt of state-owned energy companies, while proceeds from the energy sector levy will also be used to service the bond. Mr. Kobler, who is also the chief executive of Synergy Ghana, explains this should allow the companies space to grow and attract investments to the benefits of the sector.
We have an energy levy, okay, which was passed in, I think, 2016, okay, December 2016. That was on December 2015. December 2015, okay, which has run for 1 year. So it has some kind of track record. We know how much we get from those receivables from the energy sector, okay. The energy sector, don't forget that it's a legacy debt, okay. There again, you can issue bonds at the back of the levies, okay, 10-year bond, knowing that maybe every year you're getting a minimum of about 200 million or whatever. You can issue about 2 billion and then pay off the balance, and clean up the balance sheet of the parastatals, ECG, VRA, Gridco. Okay, these are the main players in the energy sector. So bring them to a new slate, and then you hive off that from their book. So technically, their books will look clean. They'll be able to present a better picture of their performance, and then this legacy debt is dealt with in another escrow arrangement, so that you on a back-to-back basis, your energy levy is taking care of this. If you ask me, yeah, I think that is the way to go, and then it creates some room for the entities, these parastatals, to work properly, and improves their balance sheet. And then they, on their own, can even go to the market and borrow long-term to do other things, other their infrastructure and capital requirements.
Vodafone Ghana CEO Yolanda Kuba says there is a need for more synergy between government and private sector players if the bid to revive the economy and create more jobs is to be effectively realized. Moves have been advanced towards instituting the public-private partnership law to enable private entities partner government in undertaking public projects and services. Speaking with Joy Business, Madam Kuba said more needs to be done to fast-track the country's economic growth.
The link between the public and private sectors of the economy has now been strengthened by the signing of the Public-Private Partnership Bill. With the assurance of making the private sector the pivot of development, the link between the two sectors seems to be accelerating. Speaking in an interview with Joy Business, CEO of Vodafone, Yolanda Kuba, main sponsor of the upcoming CEO Summit, said there is a need for more synergy between government and the private sector. She said this will help align the goals of the two sectors for faster development in specific areas of the economy.
So I think there is no one without the other, to be honest with you. Any country that is actually serious about its own development is clear that government is there to create an enabling environment for business, not for government, for business, to actually make sure that the opportunities are there for the majority of the population. Governments can never be the biggest employers in the country. They can never be the biggest constructors or infrastructure developers of the country. Other people are actually doing it around the policies that have been set by government. The stability of the kind of policies that government actually comes up with. Really, really important, because they either detract or actually enhance or accelerate the development of a country. So for me, personally, if those two actually find a way to coexist and actually understand each other's mandate, then it becomes a lot more easier to actually get out the best of both worlds.
Still on the enhanced relationship between the public and private sectors, she said there is a need for government to create policies that consolidate private sector spending in key areas.
Really, what I would like to see more of is a sort of an alignment almost of saying, actually, this is what, and be very specific, this is what I want as government, A, B, and C, because we actually talk about a lot of things that government actually wants, and then we in private sector try and interpret it. And when we try and interpret it, it's not exactly what government is looking for. You know, right now, for example, some of the foundation work that we do, I actually don't know on a 10-point plan how important they are to government. You know, although government, each department will say this is really, really important to me. And also, if we could find a way in which government can say, corporate, consolidate your spend in this space for the next 2 years, and then consolidate your social spend in this way for the next 2 years, I think will make a greater impact.
The annual Ghana CEO Summit will be held on May 22nd and May 23rd this year. The conference will bring together over 500 CEOs, business leaders, government officials and entrepreneurs across the globe to highlight various issues in the business community.
Shea is a major cash crop cultivated mainly in the northern region of the country. Its production into shea butter provides a source of livelihood for close to 1 million women in that part of the country. Now, these women, however, benefit the least from this venture. Social enterprise Sekaf Ghana Limited is therefore supporting some of these women to change their story. The Joy business van made its way to the Sekaf Shea Butter village, where these women are being taught innovative production methods.
In the northern regional town of Zugu, these women are processing shea butter. It's gradual and very tiring, but this is a major source of livelihood for most women here, about 1 million of them. They were excluded by tradition from land access, but allowed ownership of shea nuts. Shea has got immense economic potential to lift these women out of poverty. However, they're unable to tap into it because they're not able to produce in very large commercial quantities and lack access to available markets. That is the challenge Senyuk Peli wanted to tackle when he co-founded Sekaf Ghana Limited 13 years ago.
The women who collect the shea nuts are not organized. They are not in cooperatives, so they have weak bargaining power. So we decided that we have to train the women into cooperatives. So all our women groups are in cooperatives now. The women were also processing the butter from their homes, and that was very difficult to control the quality. And so we introduced the centralized processing system, which we call the Sekaf Shea Butter Village model.
The Sekaf Shea Butter Village, located at Kaselgu, 6 kilometers from the northern regional town of Tamale, is where the women are taught to produce shea butter through innovative methods. Senyo shows us how the machinery works.
The women used to use a lot of energy to knead, but we have moved away from that one.
Thanks to these equipment, the women are able to knead 3,000 kilograms of shea butter in a day, compared with 700 kilograms if they were kneading in the traditional way.
When we entered the industry some 13 years ago, we noticed all the problems in the industry, especially quality. So we came out with a standard method of harvesting and processing the shea nuts. We came out with a standard method of processing the shea nuts into shea butter using the traditional method, so the quality can meet international standard. We are also pioneers in producing finished products.
Senyo and his team decided to add more value to the shea butter produced by the Women Cooperative, and that birthed Tama Cosmetics.
Tama products are produced from the purest possible natural ingredients. We use shea butter mainly as our key ingredients, but we also make use of baobab oil. We also use neem oil. And this is our shea butter soap for very, very sensitive skin. It moisturizes more than anything you can find on the market.
Sekaf has been able to produce a variety of natural and therapeutic cosmetic products based on research. It aims to make Tama a global brand.
The market is very, I would say, complex. You need to meet standards. Recently, we are trying to enter the European Union, and it's taken us some time for our product to be finally approved to enter the European market. The market exists, but the standards are very high. And only products like Tama, which make effort to meet the international standards, are able to penetrate the international market more effectively.
CCAF has received so many recognitions for its contribution to growing the shea industry in Ghana, including Company of the Year in the Toiletries and Cosmetics category at the 2016 AGI Industry Awards and Indigenous Product of the Year at the 2014 Ghana Made Awards. Apart from creating jobs for women here and adding value to shea butter, CCAF is now investing in producing biogas from waste shea cake. It started initiatives to protect Ghana's shea trees from depletion.
We are going to go into shea nursery and then encourage communities to plant more shea trees. It's very sad to see some commercial farming activities taking place in the shea zone, and they cut all the shea trees to plant mango. I mean, the sad side is that when there is a persistent drought, we're creating the Sahara in the savannah, which is not good.
It is estimated that annual earnings from the shea industry currently stands at $175 million, comprising export revenues from the raw nuts and processed butter.
And on that note, we wrap up this afternoon's edition of The Marketplace. Thanks for your company, and we'll make a date again, same time tomorrow. My name is Manuel. Have a good day.